You think you're free, but are you? What if I told you that most of us are trapped, not by walls or circumstances, but by our own minds? The battles we fight aren't against the world, but against ourselves. The fear of losing, the need to control, the pain of holding on. This audiobook isn't just words, it's a mirror, a reflection of the silent struggles you've carried for years. And by the end, you might just realize that the freedom you've been chasing was never outside of you. Chapter 1. When life doesn't give you what you want. Have you ever had a moment when life completely shattered your expectations? Maybe you loved someone with every piece of your heart, only to watch them walk away as if you never mattered. Maybe you poured years into a dream, believing it was your purpose, only to see it slip through your fingers, leaving you questioning everything. Or maybe you planned your future so carefully, thinking you had it all figured out, but then life threw something at you that you never saw coming. It's in moments like these when the weight of disappointment feels unbearable. You sit there, staring at the wreckage of what could have been, what should have been, and ask yourself, why? Why did this happen? Why didn't I get what I wanted? What did I do wrong? The pain of unfulfilled expectations cuts deep. It makes you question your worth, your choices, and sometimes even your faith. You look around and wonder why others seem to have it so easy while you're stuck struggling. It feels unfair, like the universe played a cruel joke on you. But what if this moment of loss isn't the end of your story? What if it's the beginning of something greater? Think about the times in your life when things didn't go as planned. Have you ever lost something, only to realize later that it wasn't meant for you? Maybe you didn't get the job you wanted, but it led you to an even better opportunity. Maybe a relationship ended, and at the time, it felt like the worst pain in the world. But then, looking back, you saw how it saved you from something that wasn't truly right for you. We spend so much of our lives chasing after what we think we need. We build our happiness around certain people, certain outcomes, certain dreams. And when things don't go our way, we resist. We hold on. We grieve not just the loss itself, but the version of life we had imagined. But what if the things that don't work out are actually protecting you? What if life is redirecting you, guiding you towards something far better than what you were asking for? There are countless stories of people who thought they lost everything, only to realize that what they lost was never meant to stay. They just didn't know it at the time. A person who was left heartbroken, only to later find a love that was deeper and truer than they had ever known. Someone who got rejected from their dream job, only to end up in a career they never expected but absolutely loved. A failure that forced someone to grow in ways they never would have if they had succeeded too soon. The hardest part is trusting this when you're in the middle of the storm. When you're still standing in the ruins, it's nearly impossible to believe that something better is on the way. Pain has a way of clouding our vision. It makes us believe that this is all there is, that things won't get better, that we missed our only chance. But the truth is, life has a way of surprising us. What feels like rejection is often redirection. What seems like an ending is often the start of a new chapter, one that you wouldn't have written for yourself, but one that will shape you in ways you never imagined. So if you're in that place right now, if you're staring at something you lost and wondering how you'll ever move forward, remember this. One day, you will look back at this moment and understand why it had to happen. One day, you'll realize that what felt like a breakdown was actually a breakthrough. It might not make sense today. It might not even make sense tomorrow. But trust this. The things that don't work out are not the things that define you. What defines you is how you choose to move forward, even when life doesn't go as planned. Chapter 2. The Prison of What If? How Overthinking is Stealing Your Life. Have you ever caught yourself lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying a conversation from years ago? Or maybe you've spent hours analyzing a decision, running through every possible outcome, only to feel even more confused than before. Your mind races with what-ifs. What if I made the wrong choice? What if I fail? What if they never really cared about me? What if I never get another chance? Overthinking is like a never-ending loop. It starts small, just a simple thought. But before you know it, that thought grows into a tangled mess of doubt, fear, and regret. You analyze things that have already happened, things that might happen, and things that will probably never happen. And the more you think, the more you feel stuck. The worst part, overthinking doesn't solve anything. It doesn't change the past, and it doesn't give you control over the future. All it does is drain you. You feel exhausted mentally and emotionally, yet no closer to an answer. It's like being trapped in a prison where the bars are made of your own thoughts. You want to move forward, but your mind keeps pulling you back. You try to find peace, but the voice in your head won't let you rest. You might think that overthinking is just part of being careful, that it helps you avoid mistakes. But in reality, it creates more problems than it solves. Have you ever spent so much time overanalyzing a decision that you ended up doing nothing at all? Have you ever worried so much about saying the wrong thing that you stayed silent and missed an opportunity? The truth is, most of the things we overthink never actually happen. The fears we create in our minds are often far worse than reality. We imagine rejection, failure, and embarrassment before they even have a chance to exist. And in doing so, we rob ourselves of the present moment. Think about this. How many beautiful moments have you missed because you were too busy worrying about the next one? How many times have you been with friends or family but weren't really there because your mind was somewhere else, obsessing over something you couldn't change? Overthinking is a habit, and like any habit, it can be broken, but it requires awareness. It requires catching yourself in those moments when your thoughts start spinning out of control and asking yourself, is this thought helping me or hurting me? Is this something I can control, or am I just torturing myself over something I can't change? When you spend too much time in your head, life passes you by. The opportunities, the laughter, the little moments of joy, they get lost in the fog of your thoughts. And one day you might wake up and realize you spent more time thinking about life than actually living it. So if you find yourself stuck in a cycle of overthinking, remember this: your thoughts are powerful, but you are more powerful. You don't have to believe every fearful thought your mind creates. You don't have to analyze every little detail. Sometimes the best thing you can do is simply let go, to trust that you've done your best, that not everything needs an answer, and that life has a way of working out, even when you stop trying to control every piece of it. Because in the end, no amount of overthinking will ever change the past, and no amount of worry will ever guarantee the future. But what you can control is this moment, right now. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Chapter 3. The silent pain of holding on to someone who's already gone. There is a kind of pain that doesn't leave scars on your skin, but it cuts deep inside. It lingers in the quiet moments, in the spaces they used to fill. It's the empty side of the bed, the unanswered messages, the sudden realization that the person you once turned to is no longer there. You know they're gone. Maybe they walked away without a second thought. Maybe they drifted slowly, like a fading sunset, so gradually that you didn't even realize you were losing them until it was too late. Or maybe life simply changed, and what once felt unbreakable now feels like a distant memory. But knowing they're gone doesn't mean you've let them go. You still catch yourself thinking about them, replaying old conversations in your head, wondering if there was something you could have done differently. You see something that reminds you of them, and for a split second, you forget. They're no longer part of your world. The hardest part isn't losing someone, it's holding on to them when they've already let go. Maybe they moved on and found happiness elsewhere. Maybe they don't think about you the way you think about them. Maybe they've built a new life and you're no longer in it. And yet, here you are, carrying them in your mind, in your heart, in the spaces they no longer occupy. It feels unfair, doesn't it? How can they be fine while you're still haunted by their absence? How can they be out there living their life while you're stuck in the past, replaying memories like a song you can't stop listening to? The truth is, holding on to someone who's already gone is one of the most painful things a person can experience, because it's not just about missing them, it's about the what-ifs, the almosts, the unfinished story you never got to write. You tell yourself that if they came back, things would be different. You convince yourself that if you just hold on a little longer, maybe they'll realize what they lost. But deep down, you know the truth. They're not coming back. And even if they did, they're not the same person anymore. Neither are you. You don't want to accept it. But the reality is, love isn't about who holds on the longest. It's about who chooses to stay. And when someone chooses to leave, when they show you through their actions that they no longer belong in your life, your only real choice is whether you'll keep suffering or finally set yourself free. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean the memories vanish or that what you shared wasn't real. It simply means you choose yourself over the pain. You choose to move forward instead of staying trapped in something that no longer exists. You have to stop waiting for closure that may never come. Stop checking their social media, hoping to see a sign that they still think about you. Stop holding on to an idea of them that only exists in your mind, because every second you spend clinging to someone who's already gone is a second you're stealing from yourself. A second you could be using to heal, to grow, to open your heart to something new, someone who will choose you the way you deserve to be chosen. It won't happen overnight. Healing isn't a straight path. It's messy and painful and full of moments where you feel like you're back at square one. But every time you resist the urge to reach out, every time you remind yourself that you deserve more than breadcrumbs, you take one step closer to freedom. And one day, you'll wake up and realize that the weight you've been carrying has lifted, that their name doesn't sting as much, that their absence no longer defines you. You will be okay. You will love again. And when you finally let go, you won't just be losing someone who left. You'll be reclaiming the version of yourself that you lost trying to hold on. Chapter 4. The day you stop fighting. There comes a point when you've given everything you have. You've tried, you've fought, you've held on with everything in you, believing that if you just push a little harder, things will finally fall into place. But they don't. Instead, you find yourself exhausted, drained. The same battles keep repeating, the same disappointments, the same unanswered prayers. You keep telling yourself that if you just do more, if you just try harder, maybe, just maybe, you'll get the outcome you're desperately holding on for. But what happens when trying harder no longer works? There's a breaking point, a moment when something inside you shifts. It's not a dramatic realization. It's not a decision you consciously make. It's just enough. You stop fighting, not because you don't care anymore, not because you've given up, but because you finally understand something. The battle was never yours to win. Maybe you've been fighting for a relationship that's falling apart, pouring everything into someone who only gives you pieces in return. You thought that if you just proved your worth, if you just loved them enough, they would finally see you, finally choose you. But they didn't. And no matter how much you give, it never seems to be enough. Maybe you've been fighting against your own circumstances, trying to control things that were never meant to be controlled. You plan, you strategize, you overthink every possible outcome, hoping that if you just make the right choices, life will go the way you want. But life keeps throwing curveballs, ignoring your expectations, reminding you that you're not in control. Or maybe you've been fighting yourself, your own thoughts, your own fears, your own past. You carry the weight of regrets, of mistakes, of things you wish you could change. You keep punishing yourself, as if holding on to the pain will somehow make it right. But it doesn't, and it never will. And then, one day, something happens. Maybe it's a quiet moment in the middle of the night, when you realize you're too tired to cry anymore. Maybe it's after one more rejection, one more disappointment, one more sign from the universe that you're holding on to something that was never meant to be yours, and you just let go. Not with anger, not with bitterness, just an acceptance that sinks deep into your bones. You stop begging for people to stay who no longer want to be in your life. You stop chasing after things that were never meant for you. You stop trying to control a future that is unfolding in ways you can't predict. You stop carrying burdens that were never yours to carry, and for the first time in a long time, you feel light. You realize that letting go doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're finally giving yourself permission to be free. Because the truth is, not everything is meant to be fought for. Not every battle is worth your energy. Not everyone is meant to stay in your life. And not everything that doesn't work out is a loss. Sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. The day you stop fighting is the day you start trusting. Trusting that what is truly meant for you will never require you to beg for it. Trusting that the things falling apart are making space for something better. Trusting that you don't have to force anything, because what is yours will come to you, and what isn't will leave, no matter how hard you try to hold on. It's not easy to reach this place. It takes time. It takes heartbreak. It takes hitting walls over and over again until you finally understand. Peace is not found in control. It's found in surrender. So if you're still fighting for love, for approval, for a future that keeps slipping away, ask yourself, is this battle bringing me peace, or is it only bringing me pain? Because the day you stop fighting isn't the day you lose. It's the day you finally win. Chapter 5. The people who no longer belong in your story. Not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever. Some people are just passing through, temporary visitors in the chapters of your story. They come into your life at a certain time, maybe when you needed them the most. They teach you things, they bring joy, they challenge you, they break you, and then, for reasons you might never fully understand, they leave. And yet, we struggle to let them go. Maybe it's an old friend who feels more like a stranger now. You shared secrets, dreams, and laughter, but somewhere along the way, something changed. The conversation started feeling forced. The connection that once felt so natural became heavy with silence. And yet, you hold on, not because it's still right, but because you can't accept that something so beautiful could fade. Or maybe it's a relationship, the kind that once made your heart race, but now only leaves you confused and exhausted. You remember the good times, the moments when they made you feel special, needed, loved. But those moments are rare now. Instead, there's distance. There are mixed signals, broken promises, and a feeling deep down that you deserve more. But still, you stay, hoping that if you try harder, love will fix what's already falling apart. And then there are the people you never expected to lose, the ones who were once like family, the ones who promised they'd always be there. Maybe they walked away without explanation, maybe they betrayed you, or maybe life simply pulled you in different directions, and no matter how much you try to reconnect, the bond isn't the same. Losing people who were once a part of your world is painful. It's confusing. You question yourself. Did I do something wrong? Could I have tried harder? Should I reach out again? You replay memories, trying to pinpoint the exact moment when everything changed. But the truth is, not every ending has a clear reason. Some people are only meant to walk with you for a certain distance. They serve a purpose. They shape you in ways you don't always see right away, and then their role in your story is over. And that's okay. The mistake we make is thinking that just because someone was important to us once, they have to stay important forever. But life doesn't work that way. We grow, we evolve, and sometimes the people we used to fit with no longer align with who we are becoming. Holding on to the wrong people doesn't keep them close, it only keeps you stuck. Think about how much energy you've spent trying to revive something that's already gone. How many times you've forced conversations that felt hollow. How many times you've ignored the signs that someone's presence in your life was meant to be temporary. Letting go doesn't mean you forget the memories. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you accept that some connections are meant to end, not because they weren't real, but because they served their purpose. The people who truly belong in your life won't require you to beg for their presence. They won't make you question your worth or force you to chase them. They will meet you where you are, grow with you, and choose you just as much as you choose them. So if you're still holding on to people who have already let go of you, ask yourself why. Is it out of love, or is it out of fear? Fear of being alone, fear of change, fear of accepting that a chapter has ended. You are not losing people. You are making space. Space for new friendships that align with who you are now. Space for relationships that don't require you to shrink yourself just to be loved. Space for the kind of connections that bring peace, not confusion. Not everyone is meant to stay in your story forever, and that's not a tragedy. It's just life. Chapter 6. The Unanswered Prayers That Saved You. Think back to a time when you desperately wanted something. You prayed for it. You hoped for it. You imagined what life would be like if only this one thing worked out. Maybe it was a person you loved, a job you dreamed of, a path you were convinced was meant for you. You believed with everything in you that this was what you needed to be happy. And then, nothing. The job went to someone else. The relationship fell apart. The opportunity slipped away. And in that moment, it felt like the world was working against you, like life had betrayed you. You questioned everything. Your worth, your efforts, your faith. Why didn't this happen for me? Why did I lose something I wanted so badly? Why did my prayers go unanswered? What you didn't know then, what you couldn't have known, was that this closed door was actually saving you. We don't see it right away. When something doesn't go our way, all we see is loss. We see rejection. We see failure. But what if we could see things from a different perspective? Imagine if you had gotten everything you ever asked for. Every relationship you thought was meant for you. Every opportunity you thought was perfect. Every situation you thought would bring you happiness. Now ask yourself, would you truly have been better off? Think about the people from your past. The ones you once prayed would stay in your life forever. The ones you couldn't imagine living without. But if they had stayed, would you have grown into the person you are today? Would they have truly made you happy in the long run? Or were they only meant to be part of your journey for a short time? Think about the opportunities you once begged for, the job you thought would change your life, the dream you poured your heart into. And yet, something greater was waiting, something you couldn't see at the time. Sometimes we don't get what we want because what we want isn't what we need. We ask for things from a place of longing, not knowing the full picture. We cling to our own limited understanding, thinking we know what's best for us. But life, God, the universe, Whatever you believe in sees what we cannot. It sees the future we cannot predict. It sees the heartbreaks we are being protected from, the paths that would have led to suffering, the things that would have distracted us from our true purpose. Unanswered prayers are not punishments. They are redirections. They are signs that something better is on the way, something that aligns with who you are meant to become. But the hardest part? Trusting that process while you're still in the dark. When a door closes, we panic. We mourn what we lost before we even give life a chance to show us what's ahead. We get stuck in what could have been instead of making space for what's meant to be. But look at your life now. Look at the things that did work out. The moments that back then you never saw coming. The relationships, the opportunities, the experiences that changed you in ways you never expected. One day, you will look back at every unanswered prayer with gratitude. You will thank life for removing the wrong people from your world. You will thank God for saying no when you thought you needed a yes. You will thank the universe for guiding you away from something that wasn't truly meant for you. Because one day, you will realize the things you thought were losses were actually blessings in disguise. The unanswered prayers were never rejections. They were just making room for something better. Chapter 7. The lies we tell ourselves to avoid change. Change is uncomfortable, it's uncertain, it's terrifying. And because of that, we convince ourselves that we don't need to change. We tell ourselves stories, lies really, to justify staying where we are. Not because we don't want better for ourselves, but because we're afraid of what happens if we step into the unknown. We stay in toxic relationships because we tell ourselves maybe they'll change, maybe they'll realize what they have, maybe things will get better if I just hold on a little longer. We stay in jobs that drain us because we whisper, at least it's secure, at least I know what to expect. What if I leave and things don't work out? We stay stuck in bad habits because we think, I'll start tomorrow, next week, next year. I just need the right time. And before we know it, years have passed. The truth is, change isn't what scares us. What really scares us is letting go of the familiar. The things we've grown comfortable with, even if they're making us miserable. The idea of stepping into something new, something we can't predict, feels overwhelming. So instead of moving forward, we hold ourselves back with carefully crafted lies that keep us stuck exactly where we are. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is, I'm not ready. How many times have you said those words? You tell yourself you're not ready to leave the relationship that's slowly breaking you, even though deep down you know it's over. You tell yourself you're not ready to start that business, to take that leap, to chase that dream, even though the idea of it keeps you up at night. You tell yourself you're not ready to heal, to forgive, to let go, because holding on to the pain feels safer than facing what's next. But here's something you need to understand. You will never feel ready. There will never be a perfect moment when all the fear disappears, when everything lines up, when you feel 100% certain. Change doesn't come with guarantees. It comes with risk. It comes with discomfort. But it also comes with freedom. Another lie we cling to is, I just need a little more time. How many dreams have died waiting for the right time? How many opportunities have passed by while you were busy hesitating? We convince ourselves that if we just wait a little longer, things will get easier. But the truth is, the longer we wait, the harder it becomes. Fear doesn't shrink over time, it grows. The more you avoid change, the more you convince yourself that you can't handle it. Waiting doesn't prepare you. Action does. Another dangerous lie we tell ourselves is, things aren't that bad. We settle for relationships where we feel unseen, unheard, and unappreciated, telling ourselves, "At least they're still here. At least I'm not alone." We stay in situations that drain us because we convince ourselves, "At least it's familiar. At least I know what to expect." But let me ask you this. Since when is "not that bad" a good enough reason to stay? When did you decide that your happiness, your peace, your dreams were less important than your fear of change? The truth is, the life you want will require you to walk away from the life you're settling for. It will demand that you stop making excuses, stop waiting, and stop believing the lies that have kept you in the same place for so long. Change isn't easy. It requires courage. It requires discomfort. It requires stepping into a future that feels uncertain. But what's worse, stepping into the unknown, or spending the rest of your life wondering what could have been? You can keep telling yourself the same lies, or you can face the truth. You are stronger than you think. You are capable of more than you believe. And you don't need more time. You don't need permission. You don't need another excuse. You just need to start. Chapter 8. Why holding grudges is like drinking poison. There's a saying that goes, holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. At first, it sounds dramatic. But when you really think about it, isn't that exactly what we do? We carry anger, resentment, and bitterness inside us, believing that somehow our pain is punishing the person who wronged us. We replay the betrayal in our minds over and over again, keeping the wounds fresh. We hold on to the injustice of it all, refusing to forgive, because forgiveness feels like letting them off the hook. But in the end, who really suffers? The person who hurt you, or you? The truth is, most of the people we hold grudges against have already moved on. They're out there living their lives, laughing, loving, enjoying their days, completely unaware of the battle still raging inside us. Meanwhile, we're the ones carrying the weight of what they did. We're the ones losing sleep at night, feeling our stomach tighten every time we hear their name, allowing their actions to take up space in our minds long after they're gone. We think that holding on to anger gives us control, that by refusing to forgive, we're keeping some kind of power over the situation. But the reality is, holding a grudge doesn't put you in control. It keeps you trapped. It chains you to the past, to the pain, to the very thing you wish you could move on from. And the longer you hold on, the more it seeps into every part of your life. It doesn't just affect your thoughts. It affects your relationships, your energy, your ability to experience peace. It hardens your heart, making you more suspicious of people who haven't even wronged you. It makes it harder to trust, to love, to let others in. You start expecting betrayal everywhere because you've convinced yourself that if one person hurt you, anyone can. But here's the painful truth. Your grudge isn't hurting them. It's only hurting you. Think about a time you were angry at someone for days, maybe even months or years. Did your anger change them? Did it undo what they did? Or did it only drain you? Forgiveness isn't about saying what they did was okay. It's not about forgetting or pretending it didn't happen. It's about refusing to let their actions have power over your life anymore. It's about choosing peace over poison. Maybe you're thinking, but they never apologized. They never admitted they were wrong. That's hard. But waiting for an apology that may never come is like waiting for a storm to reverse itself. It's useless. Some people will never acknowledge the pain they caused. Some people will never see their own faults. But your healing isn't dependent on their remorse. You don't need their apology to move on. You don't need their regret to reclaim your peace. What you need is to decide that you deserve to be free from the burden of resentment. That doesn't mean reconciliation. You don't have to let them back into your life. You don't have to trust them again. Forgiveness is for you, not for them. It's a silent, personal decision to stop letting the past dictate your present. Because at the end of the day, what's heavier? The pain of what they did, or the weight of carrying it for the rest of your life? You have a choice. You can keep drinking the poison, hoping it will hurt them, or you can put the glass down, walk away, and finally breathe again. Chapter 9. The Art of Walking Away, Knowing When Enough is Enough. Walking away is one of the hardest things you will ever do. Not because you don't know it's time, not because you haven't thought about it a million times before, but because walking away means facing the unknown. It means letting go of the comfort, the memories, and the version of the story you once believed in. It means accepting that no matter how much you wanted things to work out, some people, some situations, some dreams are not meant to be yours forever. But how do you know when enough is enough? How do you know when it's time to stop hoping, stop trying, and finally let go? Most of the time, you already know. You just don't want to accept it. Maybe you've been holding on to a relationship that's been draining you for far too long. You tell yourself that if you just love them enough, if you just try harder, things will change. You remember the good times, the potential, the way things used to be, so you ignore the way things are now. You tolerate the distance, the neglect, the emotional exhaustion, because deep down, you're afraid of what happens if you leave. Or maybe it's a friendship that no longer feels the same. Conversations feel forced. You can sense the shift, the growing distance, but you pretend it's not there. You make excuses for their absence, for their half-hearted responses, for the way they only seem to show up when they need something. You keep trying to revive something that's already fading, convincing yourself that the history you share is more important than the reality you're facing. And then there's the job, the dream, the plan you had for your life that no longer fits who you are. You've put in years, energy, effort. You've sacrificed your peace, your happiness, your health, because you thought this was the thing, the career, the path, the success you always wanted. But now, it feels empty. The passion is gone. And yet you stay, because to walk away would mean admitting that it's time to start over. But here's the thing, walking away isn't failure, it's courage. Courage to choose yourself, courage to recognize when something no longer serves you, courage to stop settling for less than what you deserve. You don't owe anyone your suffering. You don't have to keep explaining your worth, waiting for someone to see it. You don't have to hold on just because you're afraid of starting again. Yes, it's hard to walk away. It's hard to close a chapter when you've poured so much into it. It's hard to say goodbye to people, places, and dreams that once meant everything to you. But what's harder? Staying in a place that's slowly breaking you. A place where you no longer feel valued, where you no longer feel like yourself. A place where you have to keep convincing yourself that you're happy instead of actually feeling it. You deserve more than almost love. You deserve more than half-hearted effort. You deserve more than a life that only looks good on the outside but feels empty on the inside. The right people, the right opportunities, the right life for you. Those things won't require you to beg. They won't require you to keep sacrificing your peace just to hold on. If something is costing you your happiness, your self-respect, and your inner peace, the price is too high. So ask yourself, are you staying because it's truly right for you? Or are you staying because you're afraid of what happens if you leave? Because here's the truth. There is life after letting go. There is freedom in walking away from what's not meant for you. There is peace in finally choosing yourself. There is power in saying, this no longer serves me, and I am strong enough to walk away. And one day, when you look back, you won't remember the fear. You'll remember the moment you finally took control of your own happiness. Chapter 10. The pain of watching someone move on without you. There is a kind of pain that doesn't just hurt, it lingers. It stays with you in the quiet moments, in the spaces they used to fill. It follows you through the days, creeping into your thoughts when you least expect it. It shows up when you hear a song you once shared, when you pass by a place you used to go together, when you see their name in a conversation that no longer belongs to you. But the worst part, it's not just losing them, it's watching them move on while you're still standing in the wreckage of what used to be. It's seeing them laugh, seeing them live, seeing them love someone new, as if what you had was just a temporary stop on their way to something better. It's scrolling through your phone and seeing pictures of them smiling, their life seemingly untouched by the pain that has consumed yours. And it makes you wonder, was I that easy to forget? Did I mean so little that they could just move on as if I was never there? The pain of watching someone move on without you is unlike any other, because it's not just about missing them. It's about feeling replaced. It's about realizing that the world didn't stop when they left, even though yours did. You tell yourself you should be happy for them, that you should let them go with grace. But deep down, there's a part of you that aches, that wants to scream, did it mean nothing to you? You start questioning everything. Were the moments you shared real? Did they ever love you the way you loved them? Did they struggle to let go the way you are now, or was it easy for them? The hardest part is that you may never get answers, because people move on for different reasons. Some leave because they weren't as invested as you were. Some leave because they're afraid of commitment, afraid of staying, afraid of something they can't even put into words. And some move on quickly because that's the only way they know how to deal with pain, by burying it in someone else. But none of that makes it easier for you. So what do you do when you're still holding on, but they've already let go? You let yourself grieve. You allow yourself to feel every ounce of pain, every unanswered question, every wave of longing that crashes over you. You don't force yourself to be okay before you're ready, because healing isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about honoring what you lost while still choosing to move forward. But here's what you have to remember. Moving on quickly doesn't mean they loved you less, and moving on slowly doesn't mean you loved them more. We all grieve differently. We all heal in our own way. Just because they seem happy now doesn't mean they never cared. Just because you're struggling doesn't mean you'll never be happy again. One day, the pain will lessen. The tightness in your chest when you hear their name will fade. The memories will lose their sharp edges, becoming something you can look back on without breaking. And slowly, without even realizing it, you'll move on too. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally understood that your happiness was never meant to depend on someone who could walk away so easily. Because the truth is, if they could move on without you, they were never meant to stay. And one day, you'll see them again, whether in person, in passing, or just in a memory that drifts into your mind. But by then, you won't feel the same pain. You won't wonder if they miss you. You won't feel the urge to reach out, because by then you'll be too busy living the life that was always meant for you. Chapter 11. The Myth of Finding Yourself. Why you were never lost. How many times have you heard someone say, "I just need to find myself"? Maybe you've even said it yourself. Maybe you've felt that deep, unsettling feeling that something is missing, that you are missing. That somewhere along the way, in the chaos of life, in the expectations of others, in the heartbreaks and disappointments, you lost who you truly are. So, you begin the search. You read self-help books, hoping they'll reveal the hidden pieces of your soul. You take trips, thinking a new place will somehow make you whole. You change your appearance, your job, your circle, hoping that with enough adjustments, you'll finally feel like you again. But here's the truth that no one tells you. You were never lost. You are not some missing person, some wandering soul waiting to be found. You are here. You have always been here. What you're really searching for isn't yourself. It's permission to be who you've always been. But why do we feel lost? Because over the years, we've been conditioned to believe that who we are isn't enough. Since childhood, we've been shaped by other people's expectations. We've been told what to do, how to act, what to believe. We've learned that approval comes from fitting into boxes, from making others happy, from meeting invisible standards that were never ours to begin with. And so, piece by piece, we start burying parts of ourselves. The parts that are too loud, the parts that don't fit in, the parts that dream too big, feel too deeply, love too fiercely. We shrink ourselves to fit into roles, into relationships, into careers that don't truly align with us. And then one day, we wake up and wonder why we feel empty, why we feel disconnected from ourselves, why we feel lost. But you were never lost. You were just buried under expectations, buried under past pain, buried under the belief that you have to be someone else to be worthy of love, success, and happiness. So instead of searching for yourself in places you've never been, start looking within. What excites you? What makes you feel alive? What are the things you've always loved but pushed aside because life got in the way? That's the real you. Not the version of you that pleases everyone else. Not the version of you that follows the safe path. Not the version of you that you created out of fear. The real you has been waiting underneath it all, hoping you'd finally stop searching outside and start remembering who you are inside. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to go anywhere to find yourself. You don't need to travel to a new country, start a new job, or change everything about your life. Sure, those things might help you rediscover parts of yourself, but the real work happens when you give yourself permission to stop pretending, stop apologizing, and stop chasing an idea of yourself that was never truly yours. You don't need to find yourself. You just need to come back home to yourself. And once you do, you'll realize that everything you've been searching for has been inside you all along. Chapter 12. How to finally let go. The 3-step process to inner peace. Letting go sounds so simple, doesn't it? People say it all the time. Just let it go. Move on. Don't let it bother you. But if it were that easy, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be lying awake at night, replaying old conversations and wondering what we could have said differently. We wouldn't be carrying the weight of past mistakes, lost love, broken friendships, and shattered dreams. We wouldn't still feel that sting when we hear their name, see a certain place, or remember the way things used to be. Letting go isn't just about forgetting. It's about releasing the emotional attachment we have to something that no longer serves us. It's about untangling ourselves from the pain, the expectations, and the stories we keep telling ourselves about how things should have been. And the truth is, letting go isn't a one-time event. It's a process. Sometimes it happens gradually, like a slow, quiet acceptance that grows over time. Other times it happens in a single moment, a realization that holding on is doing more harm than good. Either way, letting go isn't about forcing yourself to forget. It's about making peace with what was, so you can finally embrace what is. But how do you do that? How do you stop gripping so tightly to the things that have already slipped away? The first thing you have to understand is that letting go is a decision. It doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen just because time passes. People say time heals all wounds, but that's not entirely true. time alone doesn't heal anything. It's what you do with that time that determines whether you heal or whether you keep reliving the same pain over and over again. So if you're tired of carrying this weight, if you're exhausted from holding on to something that keeps hurting you, it's time to make a choice. A choice to stop giving your energy to the past. A choice to release what was never meant to stay. A choice to free yourself from the burden of what you cannot change. Letting go doesn't mean the pain disappears overnight. It doesn't mean you wake up tomorrow and suddenly feel nothing. It means that little by little, day by day, you loosen your grip. You stop replaying the past because you realize that no amount of thinking about it will change it. You stop blaming yourself for what went wrong because you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. You stop waiting for closure from people who will never give it to you, because closure isn't something someone else gives you, it's something you create for yourself. And eventually, you reach a point where the past no longer has a hold on you. Not because it wasn't real, not because it didn't matter, but because you finally understand that your life is happening now, not back then. So you take a deep breath. You feel the weight lift little by little, and for the first time in a long time, you feel free. Because letting go isn't losing. It's winning yourself back. Chapter 13. The life that's waiting for you after letting go. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the weight you've been carrying is no longer there. The thoughts that once consumed you, the regrets, the anger, the heartbreak, have faded into something softer, something that no longer has control over you. Imagine looking back at the people who left, the opportunities that slipped away, the situations that once broke you, and instead of feeling pain, you feel peace. You see them for what they were: lessons, stepping stones, necessary endings that made room for new beginnings. This is the life that's waiting for you after letting go, a life where your heart is lighter because you're no longer gripping so tightly to things that no longer belong to you. A life where your mind is clearer because you're no longer replaying the past, trying to rewrite a story that has already been written. A life where you're finally free, not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer allowing the past to dictate your happiness. But to get there, you have to be willing to release what's holding you back. Maybe it's a person, someone you loved, someone you thought would be in your life forever, but who walked away without looking back. You spent so long asking why they left, why they stopped caring, why you weren't enough for them. You clung to the hope that one day they'd realize what they lost. But here's the thing, if someone can walk away from you so easily, they were never meant to stay. The life that's waiting for you doesn't include people who make you feel like you have to fight for their love. It doesn't include relationships that drain you, friendships that are one-sided, or people who only come around when they need something. The life that's waiting for you is filled with people who choose you, people who see your worth without you having to prove it, people who match your energy, your love, your effort. But you'll never meet those people if you keep clinging to the ones who left. Or maybe it's a version of yourself that you're holding on to, the version of you that stayed small to keep others comfortable, the version of you that settled for less because you were afraid of failing, the version of you that kept waiting for the right time to chase your dreams. The life that's waiting for you requires you to step into something bigger, to stop apologizing for who you are, to stop waiting for permission to live the way you've always wanted. It's a life where you wake up excited about the future instead of haunted by the past. A life where you finally stop trying to control things that were never meant to be controlled. A life where you embrace the unknown instead of fearing it. Because when you let go, truly let go, you don't just lose something. You gain something. You gain peace. You gain clarity. You gain the freedom to create the life you've always deserved. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll wake up and realize that the thing you once thought you couldn't live without, it no longer has power over you, not because it didn't matter, not because you forgot, but because you finally understood that your future was never tied to something that was meant to stay in your past. So here's my question to you. Are you ready to step into the life that's waiting for you? Because the only thing standing between you and that life is the courage to finally let go. You've been carrying so much. Maybe it's time to finally put it down. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If this audiobook resonated with you, share it. Because the world is filled with people struggling to let go, and sometimes all they need is to hear that they are not alone.